question. So much of
So now you and I are getting so close together on this. This is so great because here's the point. The problem is those ideas have been put out. The William Dembski's ideas about different sorts of filters for looking for this, and Michael Behe's arguments. And the problem isn't that the reaction of the scientific community has not been one to say, design, piff. It's been one of being able to say, yeah, those ideas don't actually logically stand up with any sort of rigor. That's the problem. And what the film, I think, really does a disservice to the science about, forget the individuals, is that there's really very little hint within the film that people have examined the actual ideas and tried to bring it back to, as you said, the empirical scientific framework that, as you acknowledge, that's what science has to do, and be able to say that this helps carry you to a further point.
And the actual ideas are not really presented in the film. Why not spend a few moments on Michael Behe's irreducible complexity? It's not actually explicated within the context of the film.
Mm-hmm. That'd be a really good question for somebody who makes those decisions. I don't make those decisions. And look, let me say this. When you make a film, there are decisions that are made, and there are people who weigh in on the debate and say, look, I think this is important. And then somebody else says, no, that doesn't fit, or we don't have time for that within the trajectory of the film. Ultimately, you're looking to people who are making all those decisions. I can't answer that because I wasn't involved in that process. Michael Behe was interviewed. I've been told, I believe, that when the film comes out in its DVD version, there'll be expanded bonus sections where Michael Behe will be included. And I'll have to leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. It's sort of a related issue. Why not just structurally? I don't think there's even an attempt at a definition of intelligent design until at least about 35 minutes into the film. Why not put the terms up front so that people who are watching it, who really, we hear a lot about evolution versus intelligent design, but I challenge the average person who might actually have strong feelings about these things to really know what's being discussed. So why not talk about that right up front and get the terminology straight?
I'll have to go back to my previous answer, which is I didn't make those decisions.
Right. I assumed that was going to be the. I just wanted to get the question on the table.
Look,
okay.
Look, all I can tell you is that there were battles waged over these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Really just, I've been occupying lots of questions, and somebody else may have some, but I did feel like I had to at least bring it to this. Obviously, what the film builds to is the whole point of trying to say Darwin bears a singular responsibility for the Holocaust. The Nazis carried it out, but really, Darwin is the one who set the ball rolling on that. That no one could look at this film and not walk away feeling that the argument that's being developed, is that Darwin caused the Holocaust of the Nazis in World War II, and as the film suggests, he could set up and we could have a whole new Holocaust all over again, and it would all still be Darwin. Now, I've got to ask you,
I don't agree with that, what you just said.
Okay, but the film pretty much, do you not agree that of that attribution of blame, or that that's what the film is actually arguing?
I think both. The film is set up, David Berlinski leads into this, and David Berlinski says that nobody's making this argument that Darwinism leads directly to Nazism. Nobody's making that case. Well, the case that they're making is that these ideas have consequences, and that
there's those consequences with the Holocaust,
and that Darwinism is not a sufficient cause for a phenomenon like Nazism, but it's a necessary one to have a state-sponsored, state-enforced, state-executed situation where you are attempting to exterminate an entire race. Now, Ben Stein, who is Jewish, says then at the conclusion, I know that Darwinism doesn't automatically lead to Nazism.
He does, this is, I think, the sort of thing where I think, yes, you've pointed to two wonderful exculpatory brackets of both David Berlinski and Ben Stein, both saying, we know Darwin doesn't cause Nazism and the Holocaust. However, we're going to fill an awful lot of space between those brackets with things that make that point really, really well. But I want to go back to what you talked about. You made the necessary but not sufficient argument. And here are just two things that come to mind about that. The first one is that Darwin didn't suddenly pop into view in a vacuum. Darwin's own ideas actually partly drew a lot from the ideas of the economist Adam Smith, who's, the father of modern capitalism. Yeah. So really, we could say Adam Smith and modern capitalism caused it, because his ideas had those same kinds of consequences that led through this. Because indeed, that's a stretch. But indeed, that's sort of what the social Darwinists were actually arguing. They went back to him. Because indeed, that's a stretch. But indeed, that's sort of what the social Darwinists were actually arguing. They went back to him. But here's the other thing. Because again, you can reply to that. But also, here's the other thing. You said, or Berlinski's own phrase, that Darwinism was necessary but not sufficient. Now, you know what? That almost sounds like it's attributing some significant level of proper, measured responsibility where it should be. But seriously, shouldn't the serious blame in any discussion of something like the Holocaust, where you killed 6 million Jews and however many millions of other people, where that many people were involved, isn't it a grotesque offense against human dignity not to blame the sufficient causes for it, the ones that actually caused the Holocaust, as opposed to, let me name some other things that were probably necessary. If we're going to name Darwin, it was necessary to have roads. It was necessary to have trains. It was necessary for there to be a chemical industry that could manufacture poison gas. It was necessary for everything that happened in World War I to set up the horrible events in the Weimar Republic that led to World War II. Weren't all of those necessary but not necessarily sufficient? How come you're going to pick on Darwin and blame him for the Holocaust?
We're upset.
We just heard someone blamed for millions of people dying.
Look, you need to have some courtesy, common courtesy. I am here.
Courtesy went out the window when they decided to pin Charles Darwin with the death of 6 million Jews.
I don't believe that case is made. I think we qualify that case, and I think that you are reaching when you're starting to talk about trains and insecticides. Come on, ideas. These are philosophies. You can't carry out these ideas unless you have an embedded materialist philosophy, and you can't do this state-sponsored. How do you do it if you have some other idea, some other respect for any transcendental idea out there? You have to, this is something that is a necessary component, and I think the examples that you bring are if the right word is, you could do that. You could make that case with anything. Where here, what causes this? Well, you can't get there if you don't have a road to get there. Come on.
No, actually, I'm making a specific point of, if you're going to say what is responsible for the Holocaust, I say we blame the Nazis and Hitler. I'm pretty sure you'd have a hard time driving some sort of space between that argument.
I would say that you have a society that allowed it to happen.
Let me just add one point about evolution in this context, which is, if you read the 2000 article in our magazine by Ernst Mayr, a great evolutionary biologist, called Darwin's Influence on Modern Thought, he points out how